She had been hearing footsteps at night, whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves, and shadows that danced just beyond her vision. Every neighbor she asked shrugged, insisting it was just old pipes or her imagination. But when she caught a glimpse of a man's face staring at her from behind the cracked drywall, her heart stopped, and a flood of memories she had tried to bury returned with a vengeance. She was about to discover that the haunting in her apartment wasn't a ghost at all. Hello, my friends. I am Olivia, and this is Olivia's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I had always believed in quiet routines. My life, as mundane as it might sound, felt safe. Every morning, I brewed my coffee just the way I liked it, strong, black, with a hint of cinnamon, and sat by the window, watching this city wake up. My apartment, small and cluttered with books and plants, was my sanctuary, the one place I could control, the one place where I felt I could breathe. After my breakup 6 months ago, I had thought I could rebuild myself alone, brick by brick, without the chaos of someone else's presence. But lately, the apartment had started feeling wrong. It started with tiny things. A picture frame turned slightly on its own. Books moved from one shelf to another when I was sure I hadn't touched them. Sometimes at night, I would hear the soft creak of footsteps pacing the hallway outside my bedroom and whispers that felt just out of earshot. I told myself I was imagining it. Old buildings made noises. Shadows shifted. I forced rational explanations into every corner of my mind. But the unease grew, creeping into my chest like an icy hand. One Friday night, after a long day at work, I curled up on my sofa with a blanket, trying to ignore the uneasy vibrations in the floorboards. I had decided to binge-watch old movies, anything to drown out the anxiety that gnawed at me. That's when I noticed it, a faint scratching sound, low and deliberate, coming from the wall behind the bookshelf. My pulse quickened. I stood up, straining to listen, trying to convince myself it was a rat or some plumbing problem. But then the scratching became tapping, rhythmic, almost like someone was trying to communicate. My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure it could be heard through the walls. I grabbed a flashlight and slowly pulled the bookshelf away from the wall, revealing the old plaster, cracked and peeling. My hands trembled as I pressed my ear against it. And then I heard it clearly, a voice I thought I would never hear again. "Olivia, it's me." The words froze me in place. My mind scrambled to make sense of them. It was impossible. That voice? No one could know I lived here. I stepped back, gripping the flashlight like it could protect me from the impossible. And there he was, or rather, a shadow in the dim beam, framed in the gap of the broken wall. My stomach dropped. My ex-boyfriend, the one I had left after the heartbreak that nearly shattered me. But how? Why? And that was when he stepped forward from the darkness, his eyes meeting mine with a mixture of guilt, longing, and something darker I couldn't name. I stumbled backward, almost dropping the flashlight. My mind was screaming at me to run, to call the police, to do anything, but my legs refused to obey. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not in my apartment, not in my life ever again. And yet, here he was, emerging from the wall like a specter from some twisted nightmare. "Olivia, please don't scream," he said, his voice low, trembling. "I didn't mean for it to be like this." I took a step closer to the door, my fingers brushing the doorknob, desperate for escape. What are you doing here? How did you—" My words cracked in the silence, swallowed by the space between us. Every rational thought I had tried to cling to dissolved. I could feel the walls of my apartment closing in, trapping me with memories I had buried, with a man I had sworn I would never forgive. He raised his hands as if to show he meant no harm, and I saw it in his eyes, the same boy I had fallen in love with years ago, before heartbreak and betrayal had turned us into strangers. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have told you. I should have left. But I couldn't. I had nowhere else to go." The words hit me harder than a physical blow. My chest tightened, my breath caught, and I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. I had always wondered if he regretted leaving, if he ever thought of me. And now, standing in the middle of my living room, he was confessing. Yet the confession brought more questions than answers. "Living in my walls? Are you insane?" I managed to choke out. My voice sounded small, fragile even to my own ears. "You've been hiding here this whole time?" He nodded, his face shadowed but open, raw. "I didn't want you to forget me. I couldn't bear to be away from you, even if it meant this." He gestured vaguely to the walls, the small gap that had become his refuge, his prison. "I thought if I stayed close, I could fix everything, somehow." A shiver ran down my spine. The room, once my safe haven, felt like a trap, suffocating and alive. I wanted to feel anger, to scream, to push him away, but instead I felt something I hadn't felt in months, a flicker of the connection we had shared, the laughter, the late-night conversations, the way he had once known me better than anyone else. I took a hesitant step closer, my fingers brushing against the cracked plaster, the line between fear and curiosity blurring. "Why didn't you just contact me? Why like this?" His shoulders slumped, and he looked at me with an honesty that made my heart ache. "Because I was afraid that you'd hate me, that you'd never forgive me. And part of me thought that being near you, even like this, I could still matter." The room was silent, except for the hum of the city outside my window. But in that silence, I could feel the weight of years of unspoken words pressing down on us both. I wanted to scream at him, to throw him out, to reclaim my apartment. But a part of me, the part that had loved him, the part that had missed him, froze. Then, with a sudden, almost imperceptible movement, he stepped fully into the beam of my flashlight. His eyes locked on mine, searching, pleading, and in that moment, I realized the line between safety and chaos, between fear and longing, had disappeared. And just as I was about to speak, the sound of a floorboard creaking above us made us both freeze. Someone, or something, was in the apartment with us. The creaking above us made my stomach knot. My ex froze, his eyes narrowing toward the ceiling, and I realized for the first time that the walls might not have been his only hiding place. My apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage layered with shadows, each one holding a secret I wasn't ready to uncover. Did someone else get in here?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to run, but the mixture of fear and fascination kept me rooted in place. He shook his head slowly, his jaw tight. "No, that's just the building. The floors creak. I know it sounds like, well, like something else, but the uncertainty in his voice mirrored my own, and I wasn't convinced." I sank onto the sofa, gripping the edge of the cushion so tightly my knuckles whitened. My mind raced through the months I had spent alone in this apartment, the nights filled with phantom noises, the whispers that I had convinced myself were ghosts. It hadn't been ghosts at all. It had been him, the man I had loved, lost, and believed I'd never see again. And somehow, he had found a way back into my life without knocking, without warning, without asking. "Why now?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why come back like this? Why not just leave me in peace?" He crouched down in front of me, his eyes glistening with a mixture of fear and something like hope. Because I had to. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay living in the shadows. I needed to see you, to tell you the truth, before it was too late. My chest ached at his words. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him to get out, to protect myself. But the truth was, part of me had missed him, terribly, even after everything, even after the heartbreak that had left scars I didn't think would ever fade. And now, confronted with him here, raw and vulnerable, I realized how much I had longed for closure, for an explanation I had never received. I don't even know what to say, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've been living in my walls? Watching me? How could you?" He looked down, ashamed, but his voice was steady. "Because I loved you, and I was too afraid to face the consequences of losing you. I thought if I stayed close, even like this, I could make things right. But I see now I was wrong. I've caused you fear. I've invaded your life. I didn't know how else to be near you." The room fell silent again, except for the faint hum of the city beyond the window. I felt tears prick at my eyes, a storm of anger, confusion, and lingering love swirling inside me. Every instinct screamed at me to push him out, to reclaim my apartment, my life, my sense of normalcy. But another part, a dangerous, vulnerable part, wanted to reach out, to touch him, to feel the reality of him there, flesh and blood and heartbroken love. And then, without warning, he stepped closer, his hand reaching toward the small tear in the plaster where I had first seen him. "Olivia, I need you to understand," he said, his voice almost breaking. "Everything I've done, I never wanted to hurt you. I just couldn't let go." My heart pounded so loudly I could barely think. I opened my mouth to speak, to tell him to leave, to scream, to cry, but the words died in my throat as a sudden, chilling sound echoed from the wall behind him. A low groan, like metal scraping against metal, followed by a hollow, deliberate tapping. He froze, and so did I. Then came the whisper. Not his, not mine, but something else. Something that sounded like it had been waiting in the darkness, patient, watching, and now moving closer. The whisper crawled along my spine like icy fingers, making my skin prickle. My ex and I both froze, the beam of the flashlight trembling in my hand. It wasn't coming from him. It wasn't coming from me. It was coming from deeper inside the walls, from somewhere I had never imagined could be inhabited. What is that?" I whispered, my voice shaking. He stepped closer to me, his body tense but protective. "I don't know. I swear I didn't hear that before. Maybe it's—" His words faltered. He glanced around the dim apartment, every shadow now a threat. I could see the fear in his eyes, mirrored by my own. Suddenly, a panel of the wall near the kitchen rattled violently. Dust fell from the cracked plaster as if the building itself were exhaling a warning. And then, as the dust cleared, a shape emerged. A man, ragged and wild-eyed, stepping slowly from a narrow crawl space I hadn't even noticed before. I gasped, backing up instinctively. The stranger's clothes were torn, his hair matted, and there was a strange, feral gleam in his eyes. But then I saw the resemblance, the shape, the posture, the way he looked at us. It was him, my ex, but older, more worn, more haunted. I stumbled over my words. "What? Who? How?" He raised a hand, trying to calm me. "Olivia, wait, Please, let me explain. My ex, the one who had been living in the walls all this time, stepped forward. His voice shook, but there was no malice in it, only desperation. I didn't want you to know. I thought I could fix things from the shadows, keep you safe even when I was gone. I never imagined it would get this out of hand. I felt tears welling in my eyes. The man in the wall, my ex, had lived inside the very walls of my home, watching, waiting, obsessing over me for months. And yet, here he was, looking more broken than I had ever seen him. I wanted to feel anger, to scream, to run, but the raw vulnerability in his eyes stopped me. Why didn't you just leave? I asked, my voice trembling. Why haunt me like this? He swallowed hard. Because I loved you. I couldn't bear to let go. Every night I thought maybe you'd forgive me if I just stayed close enough. And then I realized it wasn't love. It was fear. Fear of losing you forever. And now I see how wrong I was. The room was silent except for our breathing. The city outside carried on, unaware of the confessions unraveling in this small, crumbling apartment. I could feel the tension in my chest slowly begin to release, replaced by a dizzying mix of relief, fear, and a painful longing I hadn't expected to feel. I stepped forward hesitant, my hand brushing against the plaster where he had first appeared. I don't know if I can forgive you, I admitted softly, but I need to know why you stayed, why you risked everything to be near me. He looked at me, and in that moment, I saw it. The boy I had loved, flawed and human, finally laid bare. Because even if it was wrong, even if it scared you, I couldn't live without knowing I tried. I couldn't live without you in my life in some way, some small way. And if I had to crawl through walls, hide in shadows, then so be it. But I can't hide anymore. And in the silence that followed, the fear that had haunted me for months slowly began to melt. He wasn't a ghost. He was real. He was flawed. And somehow, painfully, impossibly, he was still mine.